Good afternoon and welcome back to the Landmarks Preservation Commission's public hearing and public meeting of March 25th, 2025. We are resuming this afternoon with public hearing item number 6. Thank you. And I will turn it over to our Director of Preservation, Corey Harala, to take us through the afternoon agenda.
Thank you, Sarah. Starting with public hearing item number 6, it's LPC 25-06514. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 620, Lot 45, 357 Bleecker Street in the Greenwich Village Historic District. This is a row house built in 1829 to 30, later modified, and the application is to construct an interconnected rooftop and rear yard addition.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Stephanie Goto. Can you hear me? Okay, yes, you can. I'm a little shorter than the last presenter. It's a pleasure to be here. Chair Carroll, nice to see you. Commissioners, thank you very much for having me and the opportunity to present.
Step back.
Step back, sorry. Is that better?
That's much better.
I don't need to do like, yes, okay, great. It's been almost 10 years since I've been in this room, so thank you. It's very exciting. I'm really thrilled to be here. Last time I had presented something a little bit more intense. This today is going to be a lot simpler addition to 357 Bleecker Street. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to sharing our proposal. I wanted to say that both Michelle and Bernadette have been extremely helpful in my preparation. Oh, I have to click on. Oh, click on the screen with the mouse, okay. Okay, yes. Just to orient you quickly, 357 Bleecker Street. Bleecker Street in this location runs north-south. And our property is on the east side of the street. And just, I'll get into this a little bit more, but across the street, the full block, there is a 7-story residential building. And we are between the streets Charles Street and West 10th Street. The historic district here of Greenwich Village, our location just to the west of 7th Avenue, you can see with the arrow there, and Bleecker Street running north-south. And some historic photos and existing photos here for your reference. We are not presenting anything for the front facade today, but to show you the tax photo from 1939 and also the 2021 exterior elevation when the client, my client, purchased the building. And from the other direction here, the designation photo from 1967 in comparison to a photo from 2025. One thing to point out here in this image, you can see 2 doors to the north of us. Already in the tax photo from before in 39, the 4th floor was added to our neighbor to the north. In an aerial view here, just showing how our placement exists. There's some significant tall buildings to the south and to the west. I'll have some more images to share with you. And then there is a series of additions that have been added here to the north of our site. This is a block map in context. The dark colors indicating the 5-story and above sort of massing of the block. So you can see that the corner where our site is has a slightly lower 4-story and 3-story profile, but there are some 4-story and rooftop additions within this corner here of our space of our block. An aerial view just to orient you here. This is the site. You'll see a more recent alteration to the rear of the building in this trapezoidal addition that has been made. And you can see it from both directions. And this view also emphasizes the tall buildings that are to the south and to the west. And then you can begin to see the additions that have been made 4 stories and above on Charles Street and on Bleecker Street. That's part of the context of this corner. And zooming in just a little bit to emphasize, you can see the trapezoidal recent alteration to the rear. This was done nearly 20 years ago, to my knowledge, and then 10 years ago, the ground floor retail space was extended to the full lot. So you can see the terrace here and this off-white stucco addition that is currently existing. And then our neighbors here, 4 stories to the north, here on Charles Street, 4 stories with the rooftop addition. And then this building, which is 5 stories, really hems in this T-shaped rear elevation, rear yard area. So there's really no visibility to our building because of the height and the length of this building on Charles Street. And an aerial view showing just the area of work. We are proposing an addition on the back half of the roof and then a alteration to the existing extension. I will be proposing a 4 feet 9 inch extension to the existing rear so that the building will be slightly longer than existing. The lot is 70 feet. The current built condition is 52 feet. 51 feet 3 inches, nearly 52. And so I'll move on and I'll get more into those details. This is just a view from the rear, again, closer up, looking at the existing condition of the alteration and also the patchwork of elevations in the rear that it currently exists. And closer up to the existing addition here, there are really no historical details remaining in this rear facade, and what's remaining of this brick area that's part of the historic building, the lintels and the sills and the windows have been changed, and the brick is spalling and has been repaired or somehow patched together and parged over the years. So this is the part of the historic building that we are requesting to remove. This is a detail of that condition of what's remaining. And starting with our building here on the left-hand side, just a panorama of the elevations in the rear yard, starting with our neighbor who has some ductwork that has been applied to the rear. And there is a series of painted CMU, painted brick, also a stucco, and then 92 Charles Street has a new rear elevation as part of their extension work that has been done more recently with these open windows and brick facade. And then all the way to the back, 88 Charles Street is this sort of hemmed in condition here. You can see that directly behind us, there is really no view and a blank wall, as there also is on 355 Bleecker Street to the south of us, is fully built in 3 stories and is a completely blank kind of peachy colored pink wall here. And here I'll share the front elevation and the rear elevation. This is the existing on the left, the front elevation, and to the right, the proposed. And when you look at this in elevation, everything gets very compressed. So the addition on the roof is set back 22 feet 9 inches. It's not perched on the edge of the building. The alterations to the windows and the storefront, we are working together with Bernadette and Michelle, and is not part of this presentation. This is the proposed rear elevation. We wanted to propose something that was uniform and had something in terms of the windows, a little bit more lightness and openness. The lightness, obviously, for both architecturally, visually, but also to be able to bring light in, because from the Bleecker Street side, this building does not receive a lot of daylight. And I'll explain more what the addition looks like in section here. This is just a side-by-side with our neighbor at 92 Charles Street, has a very similar rear elevation, proposing openness and windows. And in working on this project and standing on this terrace in this rear yard capacity, you feel very closed in, but this facade in particular, which is new with this openness, does give a little bit of reprieve in terms of the closed-in quality that the other blank facades impose. And just going into the sectional views of, this is the existing building. This is the currently existing rear extension, this portion. So the old building ended here. And this is the proposed addition, which sort of perches on the back of the building. It's set back 22 feet 9 inches. It proposes a slight extension in the rear that's still within the allowable area for zoning. Just gives a little bit more room to the functionality of the building itself. If you look at it side by side, you can see. In terms of the height, we really tried to sit the addition down on top of the existing building. We are proposing to restructure the top floor. So we had the ability to pull the building down a little bit so that we could minimize the views from the street. There is one location, which I'll show you later, where it's visible, but I worked on several mock-ups where there was a slightly taller version, and now we've sort of landed here where we think it's the most usable and functional for the building, but also has minimal impact from the public thoroughfare. This is just another section further north, cutting through the stair bulkhead. The bulkhead is not visible from the street. You might notice that there is a generator on the top of the building, which is set back. So with the safety railing that is at the edge of the roof, the railing is what you see from the public thoroughfare, not so much the generator with the perspective. And I'll show you that in the mock-ups and the montages we have. Here is the north elevation. We are proposing the north elevation to be in stucco rather than in brick. It's just feasibility-wise with the party wall condition, the thickness of the brick, and just the actual means and methods of being able to work in this condition perched over our neighbor. A stucco with a color and kind to the brick would be a little bit easier to execute. So we are proposing a change in materiality for the north and south sides, which are the north elevation is reflected here. The south one is the same elevation, except that it would only be the upper portion. And now I'm going into some three-dimensional views and montages so you can see the whole proposal in its sited condition. This is a bird's eye view from the north Bleecker Street side to show you what we're proposing. On the north side is a metal panel zinc material on what you can see here on the elevation, and the stair bulkhead, again, in kind with some of the traditional rooftop structures that have been that are existing in the Greenwich Village Historic District. I'd like to point out here also that you can see that this structure is not taller than, we're not proposing anything taller than what's existing to the south of us and on Charles Street. These two buildings here, this is in kind in height. And then you can see here, this is our fully built neighbor to the north. And another perspective from the rear here, now this is the existing condition with the current addition and the proposed elevation here. This shows the brick materiality, the openness, the height relationships to the existing context. And in this other view, you can see it's the relationship. So this is now looking towards Charles Street, and this is 92 Charles Street, which is the building that I referenced earlier. Again, I would like to try to propose an opportunity to create a new sense of harmony in this back elevation, perhaps reintroducing brick and also setting some sort of opportunity for others to create a sense of continuity in what's really currently just random patchwork. And these are plans. I think I'll go quickly here, just showing the extension of the existing to the proposed. This area that's not shaded is the 4'9" that we are extending the building here on the second, third, and fourth, second, third floor, and then on the fourth floor, this is the third floor. On the fourth floor, this is the addition. And the rooftop. So the red line indicates the current edge of the current building. Totally, in total, we're adding about 720 square feet to the building. The existing building is 2,900 square feet, and the proposed is about 3,600. These are some details showing the stucco, traditional stucco, metal panel, and brick conditions that we are proposing. And this is the roof mock-up that was created showing the rooftop extension. The upper line here you see is the safety railing for the roof. And then this is the generator here sitting in the back. You will see that we need to create a flue extension here of our neighbor's flue. So you will see that in the other views of the mock-up here. And in this view, you can begin to see on the rooftop the context of the other taller structures that are surrounding us to the south, to the north, and also to the east, the tall building that's behind us, that's seven stories or 6 stories. This is looking south. The stair bulkhead here is what you see closest. And these are montaged street views from Charles Street and West 10th Street. This is from Charles Street coming around the corner. Looking back, you will see a light pink line here. This is a zoomed in view. There's a light pink line here. We've montaged, if you squint, we did montage the safety railing here that you see just above the cornice of our neighbor. And then closer to Bleecker Street on Charles Street, you will begin to see more of the safety railing and the extension of the flue here. This is visible from this corner right on the edge of Charles Street and Bleecker Street. And on the Bleecker Street side, this is a view from Bleecker Street now looking at our building. You will see this tiny bit of pink here is the safety railing on the roof, and montaged here you see the peak of the safety railing. And the last view is actually the most prominent. This is actually the fascia of the addition that we're proposing and the flue extension of the neighbor's chimney. You do see the zinc panel peeking here. The condition here is that there's a gap in the building between the last row house and this building, which is much taller. So that gives the opportunity for this view. I think if there was a continuous condition, it would be less visible. However, we're trying to sit the proposal down so that there would be the least amount visible here to try to keep in harmony with the context. And this is just a last view. I think that I'm ending here, and I might go back to the rear elevation view only because I think this is the most prominent aspect of the project, and probably the part that we would want to discuss.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have questions?
Just going to go back.
Okay, it was a very clear presentation. Thank you. All right, not seeing any questions at this time. We'll move to public testimony, and I'll note that there is no one in the hearing room to speak, so I will turn it over to Stephen to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you. Anyone joining via Zoom who would like to speak, please use the raise hand function. Our first speaker will be Chloe Gregoire. Chloe, I'll be elevating you to panelists, after which we ask you to unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to speak.
day, Commissioners. My name is Chloe Gregoire, and I'm speaking on behalf of Village Preservation. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. Village Preservation finds the cumulative effect of proposed combined rear yard and rooftop additions to completely overwhelm this building. At the very least, the two existing top floor windows of the historic rear facade should be retained and not covered by an expanded full-height rear extension. To achieve this, the design of a new rear yard addition could either retain the massing of the existing modern addition or be lowered by one floor, keeping the original top floor exposed. The proposed rooftop addition should also not extend beyond the building depth and perhaps be set back from the rear by several feet as is usually required in order to retain a sense of the building's original massing. Rooftop and rear yard additions could be accepted here if they are designed in such a way as to be subservient to the original row house. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Lucy Levine.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds this rooftop and rear yard addition appropriate. We understand the building's front facade is being handled at staff level, but given the work and investment being undertaken in both the front and rear at this time, we note this project presents a wonderful opportunity to restore the building's beautiful cornice, which match the existing adjacent cornice. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else joining us via Zoom? If you would like to testify, please use the raise hand function. Seeing none, I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends approval of the mass of the rear extension and the rooftop addition, denial of the use of two materials, brick and stucco, at the rear facade and north side, and recommends that they be the same finish, and denial of the glazing of the rear window and that it be divided in a reasonable scale with some operable sections. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to respond to any of the comments we've heard?
Yes, the community board was very kind to have a conversation regarding this presentation a few weeks ago, and we did take into consideration their request to have more divided lights and smaller openings in the rear. So we did add two operable sections to the rear for levels, and we did reduce the size of the window. Our lot is actually narrower than the Charles Street lot, so you can see that the windows look a bit larger relative to our width. However, I think that the lightness and the openness really allow for this very small rear yard area to kind of retain a little bit more openness and does add a lot of functionality to the interior and the life of the building.
Do you want to address the two materials?
Yes, so I'm very happy to use stucco as a material if that would be appropriate for the entirety of the addition. I think that it would be very challenging to do brick on the north and south facade, given that they're on the lot line and the shared party wall, both in terms of the amount of space that we have and the physical ability to work in those areas kind of hanging over the building.
Okay, thank you. Any final questions? All right, we'll move to our discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lutfi, would you make a motion to close the hearing? Thank you. Commissioner Master, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we're looking at a full height rear yard addition and rooftop addition on this building that already has a full height addition, but for a little remnant of the rear facade that is retained. And it is in a context that is very densely built out with taller buildings to the south, north, and east, I think. So, and the proposal is shown here. There is some very modest visibility of the rooftop addition. The one view where you see the most of it is a limited corridor where you'd step 10 feet either way, and I think it would go out of view. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you like to start this one?
Okay. So I'm curious what the other commissioners say. My reaction is the following. The first floor is fine and the second floor is fine, but I think the third floor should respect the existing facade location and should not get pushed out, what is it, 3.5 feet? And I realize it's somewhat irregular because there's some of it that's the old historic facade and some that's modern, and that have to get worked out. And then I look at the rooftop addition as separate from the rear yard work, and I pull it in approximately 3 feet from the floor below so that it's separate, so that we can realize the mass of the original building.
Right, so-
Besides, what?
So just, so I understand on the third floor, right now, there's a full height rear yard addition and then there's a remnant wall that's in the original plane. And so are you
But-
talking about the original plane or the plane of?
The original plane, but I guess if there's an existing part, we could keep that existing, but keep the original plane of the other part, or take it all back to that original plane. And it's tricky.
Okay,
So I'm curious if other people have other thoughts, recommendations.
Commissioner Chen, I don't know if you were here left. Okay, Vice Chair Bland.
I have other thoughts. I think Sarah introduced the project by saying it's a congestion situation here. And I think therein lies at least my path to accepting this as is. I don't recall seeing such a congested rear yard situation in a block. I mean, there is no donut, so to speak. And a hodgepodge of things have been built there over time, which is kind of what we like about the village as well. This is not visible from public thoroughfare in any significant way. I mean, minor little pieces of it can be seen, but to me, that's not going to change the perception of the whole gestalt of this area of the village. Regarding this two materials issue, I heard the applicant say that she'd be happy to make it all stucco. Well, I think that would be what would be not good. I think having the brick there is makes those people, at least who can see it from windows, et cetera, appreciate it a little bit more. And the stucco was there not as a material of choice, but a material of necessity, because laying brick over the, with scaffolding or something being brought down, I guess that can be done, but I don't see any reason to make it harder. So I can accept that the two materials make perfect sense to me. And again, the massing, which I think is probably the biggest issue, I just think, given the whole change over time, we're not dealing with a pure situation here at all. So why not allow these somewhat different standards in this case, as opposed to a new element on the roof, setback, et cetera, et cetera. So I can accept it as is.
Okay, Commissioner Chapin.
On this back facade to begin with. So I just, having it look like a decent design is the appropriate thing in this context, I think. Just because it's so cut off from any views or anything else. So I'm okay with it as it is.
Okay, Commissioner Lutfi.
I happen to agree as well. And I'm not going to repeat everything, but I do want to say I completely agree about this being very congested and there not being many options. And even if we did preserve the original form, I can't figure out why.
Right.
But I do also agree with Fred's thought that the rear facade should be brick.
Oh, yeah.
Commissioner Master?
This brick is fine.
I also agree with Commissioner Bland. I think for all the reasons that he stated, and that really there's really no visibility here. So in this situation, I think it makes sense to accept the proposal as is.
Okay, Commissioner Jefferson?
So when I saw this proposal last night, I was thinking it made total sense, go 5 feet out, and there was a cutout in the top floor, and it made sense to just cover it all up. And then I thought about the rules, right? That the rules are that you want to have a third floor, and that made sense also. And then I looked at the site and I said, geez, this is so compact that what are we supposed to do here? So I could accept the L shape. I call it an L shape in section. But I do think the windows should change because I think these modernist kind of horizontal windows without the cuts in them, they're not punch windows. They're just modernist windows. It's a bit much. Maybe not. I know it's if you're going to go with this type of solution, you might as well go with the modernist window. Or if you're going to go with the traditional way we think, we should go with the traditional window. So I'm floating between both of
Okay.
those.
All right. Okay, Commissioner Goldblum?
I'm going to be in the minority on this one, but I do feel that the more standard approach is warranted here, even though it is in an unusually impacted and non-visible site with no donut to speak of. And for me, the reason that that's the case is because my understanding of that preference for the commission relates not to its visibility per se, but to the retention of the actual volume of the historic building, irrespective of its visibility. And I think that that's an important value, not only because I think it makes sense to try to, hold on to things beside the last inch of facade. The volume of the building is as integral to its buildingness from the 1830s or 40s, whenever it was built, as any other element, and we don't control 99% of those elements. So I think to the extent that we could retain the existing rear facade on the top floor that is historic, I'm kind of intrigued by that rear yard addition. I wonder who did it. It was a pretty wacky little room that must be with the pointy window. It's kind of interesting. My preference would be for that to be removed and have the rest of the wall restored. But even if they kept it, we certainly can't force them to restore it. But I think that for the same reason, the rooftop addition should be set back at least 3 feet, again, to express the original volume of the building.
And, I think on the sort of the practice that we've come to have about maintaining the top floor it isn't about visibility. It's something that we have applied when not visible, and specifically when not visible. But I think there were sort of 2 ideas behind it. One was preserving a sense of the original volume, but the other was preserving a relationship to the row. So where the building was a row house and that sense of the row was legible, there was a practice of keeping that top floor as a place where that continuous plane and materiality could retain that sense of a row. And so I would say that there are many other places where we've seen proposals for full height and full rooftop and rear yard additions on buildings where the context is very altered, where we have approved a sort of rooftop that wraps around to the rear yard addition. So in this case, there is a kind of a remnant up there. So I myself am comfortable with that remnant going away, since there already is something that goes to the full height, and because this context is so heavily altered. But I think we're okay. Okay. All right. So then I think we're at 6 that would support it. So Commissioner Ginsburg, would you make the motion?
With regards to LPC 25-06514-357 Bleecker Street, Greenwich Village Historic District, a row house built in 1829-30. Application is to construct an interconnected rooftop and rear yard addition. I note that the building style, scale, material, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Greenwich Village Historic District. That except for oblique views from limited vantage points, the proposed work will not be visible from a public thoroughfare. That the addition, railing, and flue will be simply designed and typical in terms of material and neutral and finish, allowing them to have a discrete presence within the incidental view from the street. That the proposed addition will be in keeping with the neighboring rear yard additions in terms of projections into the rear yard and will not diminish the central green space. That removing the remaining portions of the original top floor between the building's full height extension and one adjoining aligned neighbor facade, which are flanked by full height additions, will not detract from the intact unifying feature of the row. And that the brick, stucco, and metal and red gray finishes of the addition be in keeping with the material and finishes historically used within the historic district for secondary facades, compatible with the context. That the rear facade of the addition will feature punch masonry openings and masonry divisions between floor levels, which will keep the addition to relate well to the character of the block in the historic context. And the presence of wide masonry openings with bands of windows, limited framing will be consistent with infill at existing rear additions within the block.
And Commissioner Vice Chair Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Mr. Bland. Aye. Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Abstain?
Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Nope.
Commissioner Jefferson.
I go with it.
You're an aye?
Aye.
An aye, okay. Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
Commissioner Master,
Aye.
with 7 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 abstained. The motion passed.
All right, that's approved. Thank you. We'll move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 7, LPC 24-11872. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 635, Lot 15, 33 Bethune Street in the Greenwich Village Historic District. This is a loft building designed by Gustavus Isaacs in 1886, and the application is to replace entrance infill.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Charles Henkels. This is Scott Cooper. We're here to propose an infill to the entrance of the Pickwick House. It's a 1886, 87 loft building in the West Village. The facade is very intact. It was restored when the building was converted to condominiums in 1984, and has been carefully maintained by the board. The work is next, please. You can see it's in the West Village. It's surrounded mostly by townhouses and small apartment buildings and some loft buildings. It stands out above those buildings because of its bulk. It's a load-bearing masonry building with a heavy timber structural frame on the interior, which is exposed in most of the apartments. The board charged us with trying to restore the original infill at the first floor. And there's good information available. These are tax photos showing heavy timber and wood framing infill. The fire escape was removed in the 80s, but the cast iron is all intact. And the infill is reasonably well documented. Next. This was the last use of the building when it was the Pickwick Paper Company. And that's where the name that currently is applied to the building came from. And you can see the townhouse next door is the offices for the Pickwick Paper Company. Next. Here's a detail of that. Again, showing a combination of windows and doors existed throughout most of the history of the building. Next. This shows it when it was the Charles Beale Company, an earlier use from the 1920s through up until the 40s. And they made museum cabinets for museums like the Smithsonian. So the doorways were robust. They had to bring big stuff and heavy stuff. The paper would have been heavy too, of course. So the doors were quite robust, and we wanted to recreate that. Next. Here's some photos showing how it looked in the 80s. Unfortunately, this was all removed at that time, but you see the cast iron, which in this photograph is painted white, is all intact, and that was preserved. Again, a 1980s photograph. The cast iron enframement is all intact, and the windows on the left and right sides of the entrance were removed and replaced with off-the-shelf aluminum storefronts. Next. We were able to, knowing at the larger scale what the storefronts look like, we looked for a detail that we could use to reproduce the heavy wood doors. And we found this building down in on Greenwich Street that has doors which were a good example that we used to replicate the exact dimensions of the proposed new doors. Next. So we surveyed that and documented, and that became the basis for the proposed doors. Next. The storefronts at the left and right side are an unusual feature. The building was innovative in the 80s, and these are triplex apartments that are receive their light and air from those atriums that are behind the plate glass windows. And those could not be changed because they're controlled by the owners of the apartments who didn't want to change them. So our proposal is solely for the entrance bay. And next, please. Currently, it's very dark. It has a closet on one side. It has mailboxes on the other side. The board wanted to open the lobby up much more to the street and make it brighter and more pleasant. And these are elements of the current storefronts. Next. And the demolition plan, we wanted to remove that closet and the mailboxes to open up the front. Next. And then in their place below the glazing, we're proposing American walnut cabinetry that matches some of the other work in the lobby. And those would be for package storage with key fob controls, and the doors would have key fob controls also. No change to the awning or the entrance steps. Bear in mind that the steps are part of this assembly of the atriums on the two sides, and there's a mechanical room underneath it. So while we would have liked to have made the building ADA accessible, we'll continue to use a portable ramp. There are no disabled residents in the building at the present time. And that could be a future change. Next, please. So the work scope is the center bay, and it replaces it all by returning it to painted wood. Next, please. So these are the doors, and then there are fixed side lights above the cabinets and transoms above. Again, based on our research, this is a pretty close reproduction of what had existed in the past. Next, please. These are sections. The left section is through the doors themselves with the transom above, and we're making them a little taller, taking them up to 8 feet, which would signify that this is the only door to the building historically. The other sides are built full. And so they would have had to bring big stuff in and out of these doors. And so we felt it was important. And the owners of the building who bring furniture in and out, they feel it's important too, to bring the door up to 8 feet. And then the right section shows the delivery cabinets below the glass level. You wouldn't have had glass going down to the grade, of course. This was an industrial loft building. Next, please. And this shows how the entryway is set back to comply with the building code requirements, crossing the door crossing the property line, but also it allows us to provide the intercom, and the doors would be kept secured, and we would not have to have a vestibule anymore that makes the lobby dark. Next, please. Here's an interior view with the package cabinets left and right, and the mailboxes on the far left. Much more glass. Next, please. Details of the doors. These, again, are patterned after the example that we surveyed. And so it's a door that looks like you would find on an 1886 loft building in the West Village. Next, please. More details of the glazing and the storage cabinets. Next, please. A plan detail. Again, the entrance doors are set back to comply with the building code requirements. The existing steps would remain. Next, please. And this is at the transom level, at the glazing level, and it shows the cabinets and as much glass as we could bring in, still maintaining the divided lights of the historical storefronts. Next, please. And this at the bulkhead level, which would be all wood on the outside. Next. This is a document showing the door down on Greenwich Street that we surveyed and based the proposal on. Next, please. And hardwood stone. I think that's, yeah, and the paint color would be the same as the exterior, the dark green. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Ginsburg.
The green paint color seems new on the building. Is there a historic basis for it?
I don't think we have documentation of that. That was approved by the commission years ago. And
That may answer my question. Thank you.
All right. Other questions? Commissioner
One
Jefferson.
question, on page 16, the color green at the corners, is Is that the color there now? Or is that
Yes.
added?
Yeah.
There's no change. All the windows have been replaced since the 80s, but they're historical replicas. The cornice is all original and is in very good condition. I've touched it. It has the 1887 date up in the center pediment, and it's a really nice cornice, but there's no work needed. They've worked on that over the years. It's in good shape.
All right.
And the storefronts would be the same green.
And the storefronts, though, are already there, and we're only looking at the entrance. Okay. Other questions? All right, let's see if we have any public testimony. We see there's nobody in the hearing room to speak on this item, so we'll turn it over to Stephen to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you. Anyone joining via Zoom who would like to speak, please use the raise hand function, after which I'll promote you to panelist. We ask you to unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. Our first speaker will be Lucy Levine.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC supports this appropriate infill and commends the applicants on a sensitive and thoughtfully researched presentation. Thank you.
Any other members of the public joining via Zoom who would like to speak, please use the raise hand function. All right, seeing none, I will note that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends approval of the entryway and that the applicant reconsider incorporating ADA access to the renovation of the entrance.
Okay, all right. And we understand there's no change being proposed now to the steps, and we can't compel you to make that change. But at some point, if you do need to meet code, we're happy to work with you on that.
To make the building accessible, but it's going to be difficult. And with the portable ramp,
Yeah.
we're doing what we can.
Okay, thanks. All right, if there are no final questions, we'll move to our discussion. Okay, Commissioner Chen, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Vice Chair Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we are again looking at the entrance doors, which would be wood multi-light doors set within existing cast iron columns, finished to match the existing storefronts and cornice. And there is already some cabinetry behind them, so that will be incorporated into the flanking side lights. Commissioner Master, would you like to start this one?
Yeah, I think they did a really wonderful job here. I think they're restoring the storefront infill to something matching the historic condition. They're probably also raising the height of the door so that it's easier to get furniture in. Sadly, they can't at this point make it ADA compliant, but I think they did a wonderful job. I like the green matching the cornice. I can find this appropriate.
All right, great. Commissioner Jefferson?
Well done.
All right, Commissioner Goldblum?
Great.
Commissioner Ginsburg?
Appropriate,
All
agree.
right, does anyone have a different opinion? Okay, why don't we go ahead and make a motion then?
In the matter of LPC 24-11872, 33 Bethune Street, Greenwich Village Historic District, a loft building designed by Gustavus Isaacs and built in 1886. Application is to replace entrance infill. I note that the building's style, scales, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Greenwich Village Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the existing entrance infill is not historic, therefore its removal will not eliminate any significant architectural features. That a variety of ground floor infill configurations existed simultaneously at this building historically, including a central bay that differed from the flanking bays. Therefore, the proposed infill at the central bay will be in keeping with this pattern of change over time. That the proposed wood entrance infill featuring multi-light transoms and multi-light paneled doors recessed within a single storefront bay will be in keeping with entrance infill commonly found at buildings of this type, style, and age in terms of material and configuration. That the proposed dark green finish will match the finish at the base of the building and will help the new entrance infill harmonize with the infill at the remainder of the ground floor. That the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or the Greenwich Village Historic District.
Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland. Aye. Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 9 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Approved. Thank you. And we'll move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 8, LPC 25-04027. An application for a certificate of appropriateness, number of Manhattan, block 819, lot 39, 122 to 124 Fifth Avenue, aka 3 to 7 West 17th Street, in the Ladies Mile Historic District. This is a neo-Renaissance style storm lofts building designed by Robert Manick and built in 1899 to 1900. The application is to replace storefront and service entrance infill and install a banner sign.
So I clicked. Okay, great. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jonathan Taylor with Higgins Quays Barth and Partners Preservation Consultants, presenting a proposal for new storefront infill and a new banner sign on the 17th Street facade of 122 Fifth Avenue in the Ladies Mile Historic District. I'm joined in person by Enrique de Castro of The Altar, which is the tenant for the space. And Waldo Villacorta of Marsolia Villacorta, the design architect, is, I believe, joining remotely today. 122 Fifth is a 10-story store and loft building completed in 1900. It's T-shaped with primary facade on Fifth Avenue and secondary facades on West 17th and West 18th Streets, as you can see on the map there. In the photo, the red lines demarcate the 17th Street facade of the building, which includes a projecting storefront, as well as a former service entry that's being repurposed in this proposal as part of the new storefront for The Altar, which is a health club. And to the right of the red line is actually 120 Fifth Avenue, which was constructed later and is designed to have a base that is continuous with 122s, but it's a separate building. Just a historic photo, early historic photo, 1918, again annotated to show the facades of the Fifth Avenue facade and the 17th Street facade. You'll also note that 122 Fifth as well as 125th had large flagpoles on their Fifth Avenue facades, which were historically very common on these buildings in the district on the avenue, and they still are. A zoom at the right of the area of work proposed, where you can also see multiple large projecting and panel signs at the time. Some existing photos just to put the location of work in the 17th Street facade in context. The storefront is a very small frontage with recessed infill that sits between a projecting storefront and a large retail establishment that runs to the corner, all within a very large scaled street wall, again, 10-story building, and largely 10-story context that characterizes the block. The existing conditions on 17th Street reflect the Commission's approval in 2021 of a full-height annex to the west of the building, as well as a storefront master plan for all of the facades of 122 Fifth Avenue. And before we get to the proposal being brought forward by the tenant, I do need to note that the base building has LPC violations related to storefront work that's not consistent with the 2021 approval. Building ownership is working with LPC staff to address these. Also here today is Chris MacArthur from Brahman Companies, the building owner, in case there are any questions about this work. But at the same time, The Altar, which is leased a ground floor space, is coming forward today with plans to alter the existing non-historic infill to create a new storefront. This proposal would replace some of the newly installed infill with a new design, and it also identifies corrective work that will be carried out in conjunction with their project to restore historic details within Altar's space that are missing due to the unpermitted work. These are some images from the 2021 approval of the master plan, including the 17th Street facade at the lower left. This location includes the solid fixed panels at the former freight entry at the right. And that was not envisioned as a retail space when the master plan was devised, but is going to become one now, as well as the bay at center, which was shown in the master plan as having double doors. A few photos of the conditions existing before the 2021 project, just to understand what historic fabric there was and is. At the left, the doorway at left, which is part of a historic storefront, there was non-historic solid infill within a historic decorative door surround, as well as steps that led up to the interior level. And at the right, the former freight entrance and shaft, there was more non-historic infill, some of it projecting from the building, and a deteriorated wood panel door. The limestone piers surrounding are all painted above the granite base. That was the case then, and that is still the case today. Some views of the existing conditions following the base building work. At the left bay, there are now double doors, new double doors, as envisioned under the master plan, lowered to the exterior grade, and a step up has been relocated to the interior, as we'll see in the plan. And at right, new solid fixed panels in place of the non-historic infill and the deteriorated panel that was there before. So in this work that was carried out by the owner, part of the decorative trim around the storefront door at left is missing, and restoration of that will be part of this project to introduce new infill within the openings. In all bays, the existing infill that is proposed to be replaced as part of this project is non-historic, installed recently, and sits within the historic cast iron, which will all remain. So here's a rendering of the proposal. The altar is proposing to establish a retail storefront across these three openings with an entry at the right. So at the left, a storefront window within the existing and restored decorative enfrainment, and at right, a new storefront window and a door in place of the recently installed solid panels. This is all metal infill matching the existing finish. The new doors and windows within the historic surrounds will have a simple modern design that allows the historic elements that they sit within to stand out, and they're in keeping with the approved modern storefronts elsewhere on the building. Also proposed is a new banner sign at the painted stone pier between the two bays. The banner will help demarcate the recessed storefront and provide visibility from Fifth Avenue, as establishing a presence to Fifth Avenue's foot traffic is very key to the altar. And so just look again at that context image from viewing from the corner of Fifth Avenue, and a rendering at right showing the banner in place sort of illustrates that goal of establishing a little bit of identification from the avenue, and also showing that the banner is not disproportionate to the scale of the building or its context. I'll just go through some existing and proposed drawings, existing elevation showing the current infill, proposed elevation showing the proposed infill, as well as noting the restored decorative elements at the bay to the left. Another thing you can see here in the elevation is the change of grade across the area, which is the reason for locating the entrance at the right instead of the doors at the left. As you can see in the existing plan at the top, there's a step on the interior. Again, this space wasn't originally envisioned to be a unified retail space, but now that it is, the interior will be leveled and the door located at right, so there can be a fully accessible retail space. Existing and proposed sections through the different openings, again showing the existing non-historic recent infill just being replaced and the historic elements remaining in place. This view, you can see the banner. Staff rules in this district would allow a banner to be approved by staff at the size of 3 feet by 2 feet. We're asking for a larger banner for the visibility concerns noted before, so it's 3'10" by 4'6", mounted at plain masonry, the plain painted masonry pier. Profiles of the storefront infill, again, it's like simple modern infill. There was a 1 foot bottom rail to keep some solidity at the ground. And then the photo shows the details of the historic enfrainment that will be restored as necessary. Just a little bit of context of other recent approvals where the side street entries, often freight entries, service entries of Fifth Avenue buildings in the district have been repurposed as new sort of public building entries. And LPC has approved sort of modern infill within the historic elements of these entries. Also, the commission has approved sort of larger banners at these mid-block entries of large buildings on the avenue, again, to help identify these public entries in the repurposed former freight bays. Some additional examples of banners approved in the district. Approvals generally cite the commercial character of the district. And as you can see here, as you probably know, the Ladies Mile Historic District, like banner signs, are very common across the streets. A lot of them are, I think, pre-date designation, so they're not necessarily approved, but they're very prevalent and do contribute to that longstanding commercial character, as well as their usefulness to the businesses in the district, which the altar is joining the district as a new business. And just finishing up with proposed rendering. So happy to take any questions.
Do you have any questions? So, there was a master plan that envisioned different infill at these 3 bays next to the projecting bay. And so they're proposing a different configuration because they're shifting the door from the left to the right. Okay. And I'll note that there is no one in the hearing room, but we'll turn it over to Stephen to see if we have any remote participants.
Anyone joining us via Zoom, please use the raise hand function if you would like to speak. All right, Lucy Levine is our first speaker. I will be promoting you to panelist, after which we ask you to unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC believes the double doors under the pediment should be maintained as shown in the master plan, rather than replaced with a single glass show window as proposed. We support the other aspects of the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else joining us via Zoom who would like to speak, please use the raise hand function. I had seen a raised hand from John Graham, but he's no longer on the Zoom. Okay. I'll also note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 5 recommends approval. And without Victorian Society on the Zoom any longer, I can mention that the Victorian Society recommends retaining the existing pair of wood panels using more detailed display windows and replacing the flagpole with a bracket sign.
Okay. So would you like to respond to the comments?
Sure. I mean, with regard to having a window at the door that currently has doors, I think, as I explained, the change in location is driven partly by this new configuration of the interior space that wasn't envisioned at the time of the master plan, in terms of that door being that opening being associated with the openings at the right, and the grade change concerns which have led us to locate the door at the right. And I think within storefront systems of large buildings, there's often a history of some sort of interchange between where doors are located versus windows, something that happened historically, something the commission approves. As part of the master plan, new doors were inserted into the projecting storefront at left. So I think that this is in keeping with that. The significant historic features of that pedimented opening in terms of the surround are either intact or going to be restored. So what makes it historic, the historic fabric and sort of ornamental features are going to be retained. So that reading as a door surround will remain.
Okay, thank you. All right, Commissioners, any final questions on this one?
Chair Carroll, I do see that John Graham has joined us now. Okay.
All right, I mean, you already summarized the testimony.
Okay.
But you can let him speak.
Okay. John, I'll be elevating you to panelist.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. I'm sorry I was a little late there. Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society in New York. This proposal has 2 aspects: alterations to the ground floor infill on West 17th Street and the installation of a flagpole. Neither is appropriate as presented. Retaining the existing pair of wood panels, evidence of the original service entrance, would be an excellent decision. However, if it's determined that removing them is appropriate, the existing historic material, including that great bay window and the pedimented opening next to it, should be the inspiration for all new elements. The proposed glass and metal door on the east is inappropriate. It bears no relationship to anything on this narrow facade. It's also, at 3 foot 11 inches, overly wide. The existing pair of glass and metal doors under the scrolled pediment match those in the historic bay and help to unify this narrow facade. They should be kept whether the doors are used or not. The minimally detailed display windows which the applicant is proposing are also inappropriate for building of this age. These new windows are going to be right next to the historic bay windows. Designing them with bulkheads similar to those on the bay would help to unify this facade. Finally, the proposed flagpole is overly large for this side street. Commissioners, this storefront is not on Fifth Avenue. A bracket sign conforming to the rules would be an excellent solution here. But we must also note that these applicants do not seem to understand the appropriate way to install a sign on a historic masonry-clad building. They are proposing to drill 4 sets of holes into the face of the stone, permanently disfiguring it. There are no notes about locating these holes in the mortar joints or in the recesses between blocks. If any sign is found to be appropriate here, the applicant must ensure that it will be installed in non-historic material at the masonry joints or by following other techniques carefully set out in the commission rules. And for those who haven't read the rules concerning the installation of banner and bracket signs recently, here's the relevant section. Quote, the LPC staff will issue a CNE for a banner or bracket sign if the proposed work meets all the following criteria. The armature will be installed within the storefront opening or on the flat face of a plain masonry, wood, or metal pier, but not including cast iron, and will be mechanically fastened into the storefront infill or into the mortar joints of a plain masonry pier. And such installation will neither damage nor conceal any significant architectural features of the building. Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add to your response?
Sure. I think with regard to the banner, obviously understand what the staff rules for signs are. The armature is not attached between the blocks because if can I move to the blocks have the blocking of that rustication has decorative edges, and so it's mounted in the plain face rather than between. I don't even know what joints there are where because it's painted stone, but to go between those express blocks would be to interrupt the decorative edges of the rustication. The cast iron, the historic infill is cast iron. We cannot attach to that. And again, it is larger than a staff size banner. So there's not storefront infill that could take where we would be able to locate off of the cast iron a base for it. And so we're conservatively, we would be happy to work with staff as we get towards installation on minimizing the amount of penetrations. We're showing multiple bases for something that can be a more slender pole. One of the examples we showed of other approved banner had one base with a pole sticking out, but it was a very thick base. So we're eager to accommodate the size of banner we're looking for, again, for the visibility concerns that we think are unique to this location, while of course trying to minimize penetrations. And it's also a painted stone surface. So if any repair, I think in the future would be easy to match the surrounding surface.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just also note, I think everybody understands this, but the rules are written to allow for staff level approvals. So by definition, every flagpole that we see doesn't meet the rules. And the applicant has shown us some examples of others that we've approved in the district. All right, any final questions now? Okay. All right, we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Jefferson, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So move.
Thank you. And Commissioner Goldblum, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, hearing is closed. So again, this is an application to replace modern storefront infill within these 3 openings to allow for 2 display windows and a single light door. This is a shift from the previously approved master plan, which had doors under the ornamental pediment. And the shift is, as we've heard, has to do with this being an independent store now, and also taking advantage of the change in grade. And we'll begin our discussion, Commissioner Chapin. Oh, and it also includes the flagpole and banner. Commissioner Chapin, would you like to start this one?
Personally think that the changes here to the fenestration and doors are appropriate and fit in with the context of things we've approved before, and will fit in with the streetscape. I really don't see anything that I would recommend changing. I'm okay with it.
Okay, Commissioner Lutfi?
Yeah, I would agree with this. First of all, you know, in this difficult, challenging retail environment in the city, I always feel like it's really wonderful to hear that, you know, there are entities, be they gyms or retail stores that are actually taking spaces. It's not only good for business, it's very good for just activating the street where, you know, people live and work. So I happen to agree with Commissioner Chapin that I think that the changes here are minimal and are not really going to in any way interfere with historic fabric in a significant way. And visually, I think what's being proposed is very compatible and harmonious with the way the building looks at the street level. And it's logical, the reason why they're doing this. And the applicant has said that if any changes that are made that require some restoration will, you know,
Yes.
restoration will be made. So I also think, you know, these are tall buildings and long streets. And visually, it's very hard to, you know, look down a street and get a sense, especially since some of these entryways are really recessed, to get a sense a lot of times of, you know, what's behind the glass. So I think the flag poles make sense. They don't seem too large to me. And the banner sizes seem like they work well. And I think that as the applicant has suggested, it makes sense to work with staff to minimize any penetrations.
Okay. Commissioner Master?
I agree. I think Commissioner Chapin and Commissioner Lutfi made excellent points. I can find this appropriate.
Commissioner Jefferson?
I agree.
Okay, Commissioner Goldblum?
I'm okay with the storefront modifications. I do have trouble with the banner. I would prefer that it be set not in the masonry. The problem with these, you know, the smooth, drilling into the smooth thing is like you remove it and the patch is always going to be visible. And you know, over time, tenants are here for 5 years, sometimes less. You get a lot of Swiss cheese in those pieces of stone. They're really not fixable. So I think that they could put it in the metal, or they could find joints and do it, but I would not be okay with putting it to the masonry.
Commissioner Ginsburg?
I can find this appropriate.
Right. Commissioner Chen?
Same here.
Okay, Commissioner Bland?
Yeah, I'm on board too. I just want to comment though that the robust quality of the stonework is so overpowering that you could do, well, within reason, almost anything to rearrange the black metal work in the storefronts and window. I mean, it really allows for lots of change, frankly.
All right, great. So I think we have enough to support it as is.
Yeah, I didn't mention the banner sign, but I agree with what was said, except, you know, obviously the staff should ensure it's installed in a minimally intrusive manner possible. So, okay. In the matter of a certificate of appropriateness, Borough of Manhattan, LPC 25040027, 122, 124 Fifth Avenue, AKA 3-7 West 17th Street, Ladies Mile Historic District. A neo-Renaissance style store and lofts building designed by Robert Manick and built in 1899 to 1900. Application is to replace storefront and service entrance infill and install a banner sign. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Ladies Mile Historic District Extension. I recommend approval, finding that the replacement of the simply designed stores will not eliminate or damage any significant historic or architectural features, that the work will support the adaptive reuse of a former service area as a storefront, that the missing historic decorative metal trim at the western bay will be restored, that the presence of predominantly glazed infill within entrance bays at this large store and loft building will be compatible with the character of the building and not diminish the organization or sense of solidity of the facade, that the infill will be simply designed and consistent with other storefront infill at the building in terms of materials and finishes, and the proposed flagpole and banner will be well scaled to the storefront and facade and in keeping with flagpoles and banners found throughout the historic district in terms of placement, materials, and size, and that the flagpole and support braces will feature slim profiles and be mounted to plain masonry, working with the staff to ensure that they are minimally intrusive.
All right. And Vice Chair Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland. Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum. Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 9 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, that's approved. Thank you. We'll move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 9, LPC 25-07306. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, block 1388, lot 66, 6 East 74th Street in the Upper East Side Historic District. This is an Italianate-style row house built circa 1871 and modified with eclectic style details in 1898 and 1928. The application is to enlarge rooftop and rear yard additions and modify windows at the rear facade.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Erin Ruley, Higgins, Quays, Barth and Partners. We're the preservation consultants for this project. I'm joined today by Thomas Jewel Hansen and Marina Milosov of Thomas Jewel Hansen Architects. They're the designers for the project, and my colleague Esther Wagner. Let's get started here. As Corey mentioned, this is an application for 6 East 74th Street, which is located on the south side of East 74th between 5th Avenue and Madison in the Upper East Side Historic District. And our overall scope, this is just to give you an overview. We have an existing 5-story building. It's been highly altered over time. We'll take a look at that. But proposal is to expand the existing 5th floor just by a little over 4 feet at the rear, new stair and elevator bulkheads, and new mechanical enclosures. And we'll be maintaining the same height as the existing stair and elevator bulkhead that exists today. And it's going to be set back substantially more. The current is about 12 feet back, and we're going to push everything about the mechanical enclosure 16 feet back, but our bulkheads are 22 and 26 feet back. So really modest in terms of the changes at the rooftop, and then some modifications at the rear, which include modifying the size and location of some of the masonry openings, particularly at the 2nd and 3rd floor on the rear elevation, and maintaining the historic 4th floor openings, new windows throughout, modifying some of the openings on this side facing elevation. This is east facing, and you'll see this is a 3-story extension, but it has a mezzanine, so it has a kind of irregular window pattern to begin with. And then we have a 2-story L at the rear. There's a existing greenhouse, all contemporary infill, and we're proposing to replace that with new brick construction matching the existing volume. And I think what you're going to see is that this is a quite modest proposal, really working within the existing massing of the house with a minor increase in area. The house has had an extensive history of change, and it's part of a row and block that shares in that expansive history of change. The building was originally constructed in 1871. We can see here in the historic map, 1871, a row of 6 houses between, I'm sorry, 7 houses between number 6 and number 18. So this row here. And then by the 1950s, in the map on the bottom, you can see there's been really significant change within the block, larger footprints of the apartment buildings on the corners, but most importantly, within that original row, rear extensions going, in some cases, the full depth of the lot, as is the case of ours. And then the addition of number 4 at the to the west of us. We are at the end of the block, the westernmost house in the row. And then the number 4 is not part of our row, but a much more substantial house to begin with. The tax photograph shows you the condition largely as it remains today, with that added 5th floor on the front facade, and then modifications on the lower portion of the facade that happened in the late 19th and early 20th centuries as part of those changes that we see so typical of the row houses in the early 20th century. Just to give you a sense of how the house has evolved, this is a sort of a color-coded massing to identify the sequence of changes. In 1898, Lockwood DeForest did an alteration to the building that included everything that we see in purple. So that front oriel window, that the tripartite window below that at the parlor level, and then expanding at the rear with a 2-story extension and a conservatory. Then in the 1920s, we get that top floor added, coplanar with the facade, and becomes a unified expression with the front facade, and further expansion of that rear L that includes the 2-story nub at the south end and another floor level at the main portion of the L. In existing conditions, this is the rear of number 6 here. So this is our rear facade. It's been coated. It's not paint. It's a Thoroseal type product. The conservatory is down below. We're standing on the roof of the existing 2-story plus rear extension. I mentioned that number 4 is much more substantial building. Here is the side elevation. It's exposed brick along that east-facing wall. Up where at the 5th floor that we're proposing to expand, that 4-foot expansion is, here's the existing rear facade. It is stuccoed, proposals to match a stucco facade there. And this is the existing bulkhead popping up above the coping or parapet line. Down at the garden level, you can see this is the 2-story to 3-story extension, brick clad, and with the existing pattern of openings, and at the very rear, that 2-story southernmost extension with the greenhouse above. This portion of the facade is not currently painted. It has been painted over time, and the proposal includes painting it with a mineral coating, so a breathable finish that will have a consistent finish with the rear facade, since that coating is not removable from the main body of the historic building. Just to give you a sense of the block condition, here we have the block plan showing all of the rear extensions and their varying heights, as well as the rooftop additions. Immediately adjacent to us at number 8, there's an extension, a rooftop addition that's set back at the just off the parapet, which we can see on this building here. Our mock-up is in place in this view. And then just in the overall context, number 4 with that exposed brick wall, and then the row beyond that to the east. As you look farther to the east, you can see those extensions on the original row where that go all the way out to the lot line. That also includes at this very far eastern end, a 7-story extension. So this rear elevation of the easternmost building in the row is currently 7 stories and abuts the apartment building on the corner. So in terms of scope, the front facade, there is no proposed work at the front facade except window replacement. The existing windows are actually in violation from the 1980s. So we'll be replacing those with new wood windows to match the historic. And then up on the rooftop, we have the two mechanical enclosures. Mechanical enclosures are a louvered system to allow air to vent through, and it'll have a bronze colored finish. And then beyond that are the new bulkheads, and we'll talk about that at the rear. So from the top, the new bulkheads, stair, and elevator, these will be copper-clad standing seam. And then below that is the new 4-foot extension. That also includes a parapet. Currently, the roof just sort of drops off. So there's a 3'6" parapet that'll have an articulated cornice. All this will be done in stucco and have a buff colored finish. We'll look at a sample for that, and that'll all be the same mineral coating that the primary facades will have. On the lower portion of the facade, we have the 4th story windows will be retained. The window openings are retained. Windows are being replaced. The modified window openings, keeping that punched opening vocabulary, but just relocating them and enlarging them for the new program space within. And that happens at the 2nd and 3rd floors. And then at that rear extension, you can see the existing greenhouse. That becomes brick construction. It'll be coated to match everything around it. And then the new opening to lead to a terrace. The existing conservatory remains. In terms of finish, copper, it will be real copper, so it will patinate. It'll be a soft brown for the next 50 years. Standing seam, and then the Kime finish, the mineral coating, which will be like a buff color, and black painted railings throughout, and the bronze finish of the mechanical screen, which is seen against on the roof level. It's not seen from the street level, but at the roof level is against red brick parapets. So the visibility is really very limited, and it's mostly related to this view right here. Number 5 East 73rd, so we're on the block south of us, and there are 2 breaks in the street wall that flank this historic building, and that's what gives us a sight line into the mid-block and our rear facade. So we'll be looking at those. So on the east side of number 5, you can see in the distance back here, this portion is number 6, and then we see a portion of number 8 to our east. You're getting sort of the top floor, these are the 4th floor windows, and then above that, so this is going to be where you see the orange. Here's the detail view, is the expansion of the existing 5th floor, and then the bulkheads above that. And just to give you a sense of the plane, the 5th floor will be set back 17 feet from the rear facade. So there's a lot of depth here that is the orange is kind of obscuring. And then there's a rendered view here to give you a sense of the copper finish and the buff facade. Moving to the west side of number 5 East 73rd, we have a view over the parking entry for the 5th Avenue building. So here is our context. The existing 4th floor remains. And then above that, we get the expanded 5th floor and the new bulkheads, and then in rendered form. From Madison Avenue, this is the view. We're on the east side of Madison, looking west into this view. There's a very minimal sight line across the roof lines of the buildings. This is only going to be visible in the dead of winter. I think if we even went out there now with buds on this tree, we wouldn't see it. And we're just getting the corner of the bulkhead right in here. And then as you walk west along 74th Street, you're going to lose the sight line. There's no visibility over the facade or any visibility from 5th Avenue either. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have questions? Anyone? Okay, not seeing any questions. This time we'll see if we have any public testimony, and I'll note there's no one in the hearing room, so I will turn it over to Stephen to take us through any remote participants.
Thank you. I see that we have one member of attendees on Zoom with their hand raised. Anyone else wishing to speak, please use the raise hand function. Our first speaker will be Friends of the Upper East Side. I'll be promoting you to panelist, after which we ask you to unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Chair Carroll, Honourable Commissioners. This is Nuha Ansari speaking on behalf of Friends of the Upper East Side. Friends' Preservation Committee commends the applicant's well-considered proposal for the rear facade, which acknowledges the long history of modifications to this 1871 row house. We have no objections to the proposed changes, including the adjustments to the window openings, the modest expansion of the top floor addition, and the new elevator and stair bulkheads, which would be minimally visible from the public way. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public joining via Zoom, please use the raise hand function if you wish to speak. All right, seeing none, I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 8 recommends approval. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So there's supportive testimony. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to say before we begin our discussion. Okay, so we'll do that now, commissioners, if we don't have any other questions. So Commissioner Chen, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that
Second.
motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so this is an application for a townhouse that has had a number of alterations and expansions over time at the rear, and this is a proposal to modify window openings and slight adjustments to the size of the rooftop addition and a bulkhead. There are these two gap views from the south behind, and I will, Jeannie, Ms. Commissioner Lutfi, would you like to start this one?
Sure. I think the applicant has done a very good job. I'm going to say in a way, these changes sort of clean up the building a little bit, which is nice. If, you know, the changes to the windows on the side makes them a little more coherent and uniform and consistent. And I think the changing of the atrium in the rear where the glass comes off and they build up and then they basically fence off the area. It's much cleaner looking. Likewise, I think the changes at the top are minimal and very clean, and the visibility is really very minimal from these small gaps in the streetscape at a distance. So I think I covered everything.
Okay, I think you did. Commissioner Master?
Yeah, I agree. I think these changes that are proposed are very modest, and I can find it appropriate.
All right. Commissioner Goldblum?
I agree.
Commissioner Ginsburg?
Really appropriate.
Okay, Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, same here. Modest changes, but they sort of bring the house to what it might have been a long time ago. And I mean, it's really cleaning it all up, as you said.
And Commissioner Chapin?
I agree with what's been said already.
Well, so I think we're in agreement. Commissioner Lutfi, would you make the motion?
Sure. In the matter of docket 25-07306, 6 East 74th Street, the Upper East Side Historic District, an Italianate style row house built in 1871 and modified with eclectic style details in 1898 and 1928. The application is to enlarge rooftop and rear yard additions and modify windows at the rear facade. I note that the building's style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Upper East Side Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the work will not alter or eliminate any significant architectural features, that only limited portions of the proposed work will be visible from public thoroughfares at a distance through narrow gaps in the street wall, that the proposed modest enlargements and shifting of masonry openings at the rear facade will maintain a residential scale, will not detract from the composition of the facade, and will maintain the relationship to the other buildings in the row at the top floor, that the punched openings in brick, stucco, and standing seam copper cladding of the enlarged rooftop and rear yard additions will be in keeping with the design and materiality of the rear facades, that the enlargements to existing additions are modest in scale
and that the cumulative effect of the added volume will not overwhelm the building or surrounding buildings in the block, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or the historic district.
Thank you. Commissioner Master, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, Mark. will you
Commissioner
call-
Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland. Aye. Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi, Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 8 in favor, none opposed, the motion passed.
That's approved. Thank you. We'll move to the next and final item.
That's public hearing item number 10, LPC 25-07916. This is an application for an amendment. It's in the Borough of Manhattan, block 1494, lot 72, 1014 Fifth Avenue in the Metropolitan Museum Historic District. This is a Beaux-Arts-style townhouse designed by Welch, Smith, and Pravat and built in 1906 to 07. The application is to amend certificate of appropriateness 24-08814 to alter the approved rear yard addition.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Carroll and Commissioners. I'm Carol Rosenthal, Senior Counsel at Fried Frank. And as noted, the 1014 Fifth Avenue has been here previously. We're here today to discuss a post-approval amendment for a few refinements to the top level of an improved enlargement in the rear yard. I am joined today by Leonie Hagen of David Chipperfield Architects, who will discuss the specific changes. Also joining us on Zoom are Sebastian Kempt and Anka Rogenbach of Carroll Architects and Robert Portnoff of the Paratus Group. Do we have our slides?
Yes, who will be going through them? Would it be yourself or the architect?
No, it will be the architect.
Okay, so you just need to click on the screen and then you can advance using your mouse or there you go.
Okay, terrific. Okay.
And then Leonie, if you can just please unmute yourself and state your name for the record.
Yeah, hi, I'm Leonie Hagen of David Chipperfield Architects.
Okay, so this is the site at 1014 Fifth Avenue between East 82nd and East 83rd Street. It is the building shown on this side as a 6-story Beaux-Arts style townhouse between the two much larger neighbors. And in August, we could change, yes, in August of 24, the site received the certificate of appropriateness for the modification of windows, doors, and certain other features on the facade, as well as for an enlargement of a rear yard addition. So you want one more change. The architects now desire to make 3 changes to the design of the wing walls of the terrace, which occupies the top floor of the rear yard addition, changes which the project team believes will improve the design. The changes were presented to Community Board 8 on February 10th, which viewed them as more in character with the building and the architectural vocabulary of the context, and gave it unanimous approval. And it was further unanimously approved by the full board on February 19th. Leonie will now take you through the 3 changes.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. As Carol already mentioned, I'm the project architect for 1014 Fifth Avenue with David Chipperfield Architects in London, which is why we can't be in the room with you this afternoon. Since our last presentation to the Commission, we have further developed and improved the design, and we are proposing 3 minor changes to the rear roof terrace of the already approved renovation. The proposed changes respond to the feedback from the first Community Board 8 hearing, with the goal of better embedding the terrace in its context and softening the brick walls to the north and south. Rather than creating a tunnel-like terrace with 2 fully enclosed brick walls to the north and south, we want to open the terrace up to all sides, whilst maintaining a clear primary orientation to the east into the generous open courtyard. We propose to frame the primary opening to the east by introducing wall pieces to each end, as well as a header. We also propose secondary, much smaller openings to the north and south. This will allow light to come into the 1014 roof terrace from all sides, but also allow light to enter the adjacent light wells. In addition, we are lightening the timber trellis, which will also allow more light to enter the terrace and adjacent light wells through the newly introduced openings. The idea behind the east opening comes from the punched opening language of the existing building and our proposed addition. We believe that this design change makes for a better rear facade. The large curtain wall to the common room just below the roof terrace sits more comfortably within the overall, oh, sorry, I was going back. That's the correct slide. The large curtain wall to the common room just below the roof terrace sits more comfortably within the overall elevation with a more solid framing to the top. In the approved design, the roof terrace had a different architectural expression than the rest of the elevation. We believe that the proposed framing of the opening creates a more coherent building facade. The roof terrace is private and not accessible to the public. As you can see from the plan drawings, whilst we are proposing additional openings to the north and south, the clear and natural orientation of the terrace remains to the east. Despite the proposal to open the terrace up by introducing more openings, we are further enhancing its introverted nature. We create an outdoor room with softened wing walls to the north and south. That's all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. All right, do we have any questions, commissioners? All right, and we'll see if we have any public testimony. I'll note there's no one in the hearing room to speak, so we'll turn it over to Stephen to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you. Anyone joining us via Zoom who would like to speak, please use the raise hand function. All right, I see a raised hand from Nuha Ansari. Please unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Chair Carroll, Honourable Commissioners, this is Nuha Ansari speaking on behalf of Friends of the Upper East Side. Friends' Preservation Committee supports the applicant's proposed amendments to the design of the top floor of the building's rear yard extension. We believe that the modifications improve the readability of the rear facade while still allowing light and air into the space and into the adjacent light wells. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else joining us via Zoom who would like to speak, please use the raise hand function. All right, seeing none, I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 8 recommends approval. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So there's supportive testimony. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we move to our discussion? And this is for anyone on the applicant team.
No, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, commissioners, if there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Chen, would you make a motion? Sorry.
So moved.
All right. And Commissioner Lutfi, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Okay, so we're looking at a proposed amendment to a previously approved design of a new rear facade on this townhouse. And this is, and again, as we sort of discussed earlier, another townhouse kind of wedged between two large apartment buildings and facing a varied block. And the proposal originally was an open terrace. You're now proposing to enclose it in a different way with openings on the side and a lighter roof. Vice Chair Bland?
Question before. They didn't mention it, and I can't remember. Is this visible from Madison Avenue?
Not visible. from
Not
anywhere.
visible at all.
Okay.
No.
Would you like to do that?
Sure. Well, I view this as, since it's not visible at all, this is something that an owner and a highly regarded architect want to make a change to. Who am I to stand in their way? I think this is perfectly appropriate, as was the previous scheme, as could be other schemes, but this is what they want, and I'm fully behind it.
Thank you. Commissioner Chapin?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Bland. I think that, they're making a few changes that aren't that major, and they're they're not visible, and it's for, operation of an institution. I think it's fine.
Okay. Commissioner Lutfi.
Was already lovely, and I think it's even better in a way. And it's always great to be able to respond to community input in a way that enhances a project. And I think also, based on the changes that they've made, they're getting a little more light in from above and light and air from the sides. So I think it's a win-win on many levels.
Okay. Commissioner Goldblum
It's totally appropriate.
and Commissioner Ginsburg,
Appropriate.
Commissioner Chen.
Beautifully done.
Great. Okay, so we have a consensus. Vice Chair Bland, would you read the motion? Oh, I've got everything.
In the matter of 1014 Fifth Avenue, the Metropolitan Museum Historic District. This is an application to amend Certificate of Appropriateness 24-08814 to alter the approved rear yard addition. I note that the building's scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Metropolitan Museum Historic District. I recommend approval, noting that the proposed work at the commission-approved rear extension will not be visible from any public thoroughfare, that the new masonry openings at the north and south lot line walls of the rooftop terrace will not detract from the character of the secondary facades, that the enclosure of the terrace at the top floor of the new rear facade featuring a large opening surrounded by masonry would not significantly alter the previously approved volume of the addition and will remain well scaled to this building, which has been adapted for institutional use and is tucked between two much larger apartment buildings, and that the work will not detract from the architectural or historic character of the Metropolitan Museum Historic District.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chapin, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, Mark, will
Chair
you?
Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland. Aye. Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum. Aye. Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
With 7 in favor, none opposed, the motion passed.
All right, that's approved. And that concludes our public hearing for today, March 25th. We'll see everyone on April 1st. And thank you, everyone, for your participation and commissioners for your hard work today.